Surah Al-Qasas, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when Musa fled from Fir'aun, he wandered into the valley of Madian. وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ. He came to the valley of Madian. وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ يَسْقُونَ. He found the well of Madian. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any food. He needed water. So he went to the well. And he found a whole bunch of people surrounding the well. Ummah, like crowds, hustle and bustle. وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ. And he found two young ladies that were being repelled away from the crowd. They weren't in the middle of the crowd. They were at a distance underneath the well. مِن دُونِهِمْ. So they're a distance away from the well. They're trying to get in, but something is repelling them. Notice he is examining the situation. There's nothing wrong with looking around you, seeing male and female, what's going on. This is the Sharia doesn't say you walk literally blind to your feet. You see what's going on. And he sees two young ladies with their flock, and something is repelling them, or they're not in the thick of the crowd. So he walks up to them. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. He says, what is the matter with you? قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. Now here we see as well that a non-mahram man is approaching a non-mahram lady and engaging in conversation. But the conversation, two words. Not, can I get your number? Not, what's your name? Not, let me tell you about myself. He sees a bizarre situation and he says, minimal conversation. What is going on? Why are you here? Ma khatbukuma. Now, why did he walk up to them? Some ulama say that it was strange to see women in basically a man's arena. And this is definitely a very likely possibility, that it's not typical, especially when you have shepherds and people that are of a different way of interacting and whatnot. You find two young ladies in a crowd full of workers that are jostling and shoving and bringing in. It's a strange situation. So he's seeing, is everything okay? Can I help out? And this shows you it is halal even in this case. And others mention another nukta, possibility, which is actually very likely. And that is that, imagine this scenario where you have a bunch of young men all jostling and shoving together, and you have two ladies in the distance. It is very likely that these men were saying things they shouldn't say, teasing, catcalling. This is usually very common. When you have a group of, workers, men of this nature, just all coming together, and then you have two ladies of this nature, there might have been some inappropriate back and forth. That's why the ladies are not tadhudan. They've been repelled by the manners of these men. So they're not in the thick of things. So Musa alayhi salam comes between them and the ladies as a defense mechanism. By the way, Musa was massive and huge. Musa was muscular and tall, right? So Musa alayhi salam shows what it means to be a gentleman and essentially protects the ladies from what's going on behind. And he says, why are you here? You see what's going on. I mean, ma khatbukuma. So he becomes a protector when he sees the need to protect. And these are two strangers. These aren't his kith and kin. He doesn't know them, but what's going on is not appropriate. Could escalate to something more. So he says, ma khatbukuma. Minimal. What is your issue and concern? And they replied, قَالَتَا لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُصْدِرَ الرِّعَاء. They said, the two of them, they said, we are not able to feed our goats until the rest of the shepherds leave. And by that time the water is gone. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. And our father is a very weak, elderly man. So they're making an excuse. Why are they in the man's world? Again, this was a gendered world back then, right? This is not where young ladies come. So they have to explain that, look, we are here. We're not in the middle of things because we can't get in the middle of this crowd. You know what's going to happen if we jump in there. And we're going to have to wait until the majority of the water is gone. Nothing will be left. And then to explain, they said, our father is an elderly person. And the implicit understanding is we can't afford to hire somebody. They didn't say that, but it's understood that we only have one man in the house, and that's a very elderly father. He's physically not capable of walking. He cannot come over here. We have taken on the job. Generally speaking, yes, it is a man's world in this arena, but there's no alternative. Now the question arises, why would they respond to Musa in the first place? He's an ajnabi, he's a stranger. Why would they even speak up? Our scholars say the demeanor of Musa alayhi salam, his akhlaq, the fact that he defended them in this manner, the fact that he approached them in a manner that clearly gave them comfort. He wasn't staring, lowered gaze, acting in a very, very dignified, gentleman manner. He exuded a protection even though they didn't know him. They offered, say, you know what, this is why we are here. By the way, what really makes this whole story interesting, Musa alayhi salam was not yet a prophet. This is all happening when he is not yet a prophet. He is a regular Muslim. And he was raised by his mother. So we can say this is how his mother raised him. The akhlaq right here that he is getting, his mother, you know the story. We didn't go there today, but you know the story. His mother raised him. You know the miracle of Allah Azza wa Jalla bringing his mother back to the palace of Fir'aun. She's the only Muslimah, otherwise he would have been a pagan. Allah saved him by putting his mother as his nanny, as his nurse, the wet nurse. His mother comes in and she raises him, the only Muslim in the whole palace of paganism. The akhlaq he learned from his mother, we are seeing it here. He's not yet a prophet. Prophecy is going to come 10 years later. Right now, he's a Muslim like me and you. And we see the amount of akhlaq and dignity. These two strange ladies to him, they trust him by giving this information away. Our father is elderly and sick. He can't come here. We can't afford. They don't say this, but it's understood. We can't afford to hire somebody. That's why we're doing this job. When he hears this story, فَسَقَى لَهُمَا, he took the goats and went into the crowd with the other men there. فَسَقَى لَهُمَا, he's the one who went. Now, Allah says, فَسَقَى لَهُمَا, as if to indicate that his niyyah was so pure, there was no motivation of anything other than to help them out. فَسَقَى لَهُمَا, he fed the goats for them. He had no incentive to show off. You know, every young man knows you can be the knight in shining armor right now. Even older men might know this too. It's like, you have the opportunity. I shall save the damsel in distress. And in the process, spotlight is on me. But Allah hints, فَسَقَى لَهُمَا. He had no such intention. His intention was pure. He wanted to help innocent people, young ladies whose father is sick. Even though it's so easy to take advantage of that situation, he didn't do so. And he gives them their flock back. Notice, they trust him enough to give them their flock. What would he have done in 3 minutes such that these two young ladies say, take our flock and go away? Imagine how his akhlaq could be that two young ladies who come daily to the watering, they come every single day. They have to face the taunts, they have to face the catcalls, they have to face the flirtation. Now a strange man comes and they tell him their story and they say, here, take our goats. Can you imagine how Musa alayhi salam would be acting to gain the confidence of these two young ladies? The amount of dignity, the amount of, we call in Arabic, hishma, like modesty, how he is portraying himself. The young ladies know this is a gentleman. And every lady knows the difference between a gentleman and between an evil person. And Musa has won their confidence. Here, take our flock. فَسَقَى لَهُمَا. Then he comes back. And then what? ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى. He turns his back on them and walks away. Anyone amongst us, this is the time. What's your name? You want to meet for dinner later on? Let's grab some coffee. This is the time. You have done the favor. She has to repay it, right? But Musa knows how sensitive it is. So as soon as the flock come, tawalla, he literally turns his back on them. Because he knows how dangerous this type of situation is. He didn't do it for them. Saqa lahuma. He didn't do it for himself. Sorry, he did it for them. He didn't do it for himself. He did it for them. He turned his back and he walks away. By the way, later on in the story, the girls praise Musa to the father and they say that the best person you can hire is qawiyyun amin, strong and trustworthy. This indicates from the ayah that Musa alayhi salam showed them aptitude and trustworthiness when he did the job of feeding their goats. He must have done a tactic or a maneuver with his strength to make sure the goats get fed first. And he must have been trustworthy. Of course he was trustworthy. He gave the goats back and he interacted with them in a manner that showed how trustworthy he was. So when they describe Musa later on to their father, look at the two adjectives they use. Musa was qawi, strong, and Musa was ameen, trustworthy. In that 3 minutes, Musa can demonstrate all of these characteristics. ثُمَّ تَوَلَّى إِلَى الظِّلِّ. Then he turns his back and goes away, and he sits under a shade, and he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٍ. Ya Rabb, I am faqir, I have nothing. I don't have a house, I don't have a job, I don't have a career, I don't have a wife, I don't have anything, right? Notice, when Musa himself was in distress, he's running for his life, right? From the biggest superpower in the world. He is literally running from the army of Fir'aun. Literally, the most superpower empire. And the single person in charge, Fir'aun, knows him by name and hates his guts. He's fleeing the world. Where is he going to go? And he has nothing. If anybody had an excuse to be selfish and not care about other people, it was Musa. Nafsi, nafsi. But no. His mother taught him better than this. Because all of this is from his mother. Right now, there is no Jibreel. Right now, there is no wahi. Right now, there is no communication. Everything he's doing, this is the akhlaq his single mother taught him. This is the reality. His mother gave him these manners. Help the poor, even when you're poor. Help the one in distress, even when you're in distress. Subhanallah. When he helped those in distress, Allah relieved his stress. And this is what we learn in the Sharia, in the Hadith. O Muslims who are facing a problem, you want your problem to be solved? Solve other people's problems. Allah will solve your problem. We learned this from the story of Musa alayhi salam. You want your problems to be solved? Get involved in solving the problems of other people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will solve your problems. And this is actually in the hadith. وَاللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا دَامَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. Allah will help your problems and can continue to solve them as long as you are helping your brother solve his problems. It's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And we see this in the story of Musa. Musa alayhi salam gave to the ladies and he didn't ask them anything, even though if he had done so, it would still be mu'addab and with etiquette. Nothing wrong with that. If he had said, dear ladies, I have nothing. Can you spare a meal? Can you give me some money? If he had done this, it would be halal. Nothing wrong. But subhanAllah, it's a very sensitive. You're a strong young man. These are young ladies. Yeah, you just be content. Just do and move on. So he gave them what they needed to do, and then he went to the shade, away from them. He literally walks away because this is a very dangerous scenario. You are now the knight in shining armor. Their hearts might be affected. Your heart might be affected. Don't take advantage of it. He turned his back, walked away from them, and then prayed to Allah, Ya Rab, I need some help. Ya Rab, I am faqir. Here, faqir literally means faqir. I have nothing. He literally had nothing. And he said, Ya Rab, whatever you give me, I'm a faqir, I need it, right? So Allah Azza wa Jal says, فَجَاءَتُ إِحْدَاهُمَا. Fa here means immediately. Literally, she went back home, she came back. This is Allah's answer to his prayer. How quickly Allah answers the prayer. That when you do something for others, Allah will then return the favor unto you. So, فَجَاءَتُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. That one of them came back. One of them came back walking with shyness and modesty. She was feeling very shy. Our scholars mention, when Allah praised the woman who was to become the wife of Musa, He did not describe her beauty. He did not describe her outer garments. He did not describe her length and whatnot. He described her akhlaq with haya. This was to be the wife of Musa. And what was the characteristic that Allah praises from above the seven heavens? She was a shy lady. She was walking embarrassed, awkward, right? And again, if you point this out, please don't take this the wrong way. This is halal. It's totally understandable and permissible for there to be feelings in the heart. Nothing's wrong with that. But how one engages with them and how one expresses them, this is where the Sharia becomes involved. Clearly, this is a very, handsome young man saving the day. It's natural. Now her father's telling her to bring the young man back. Of course, she's going to be nervous. She's going to be, and she shows this nervousness. And this nervousness is a sign, this awkwardness, this shyness is a sign of Iman. This is very politically incorrect to say, but it is what it is. I'm not going to change the Sharia because our modern values have changed. One of the most praiseworthy characteristics of our young sisters should be that of haya. Yes, haya is also a masculine trait. Nobody's denying that. But especially amongst women, it becomes even more prized. And that's why Allah praises it in the Quran. So she's embarrassed, she's shy, she cannot look at Musa. One of the scholars say she was covering her face with her hand as she's speaking to him. I'm embarrassed. And she says, قالت إن أبي يدعوك. My father is calling you. Notice this is also wisdom. Anytime a young lady has to interact, try to bring in an adult male, even if it's by name. My father is calling you. If she had said, we are calling you, it would have been right. But every young man knows when you mention the father, all of a sudden you sift those that are serious from those that are players. Sisters, I speak to you as well, listen to this as well. If there is such a scenario and situation where something is in the heart, never ever interact alone. The father, even by name, has to come in. That's very necessary because it sifts the serious from those that are not serious. Inna abi yad'uka. My father is calling you. Even though we don't know, maybe she was calling, we don't know, maybe the conversation, but you mention the father is calling. لِيَجْزِيَكَ أَجْرَ مَا سَقَيْتَ لَنَا, so that he can reward you for what you have done. So then Musa and the lady walked towards the house. Now, our scholars mention, as soon as she walked in front of him, Musa realized this is very awkward. Every, again, young man, maybe even older men, you understand there's a lady in front of you, the wind is going to be blowing. It's not appropriate. It's a little struggle for many of us to make sure we're not staring at this situation. Musa understood. So what did he do? He said to her, you walk behind me, and I shall walk forward, and if I'm going in the wrong direction, throw a stone in the direction I should be walking. Subhanallah. He understood. Now every man understands, right? You have the lady right in front of you and you're walking behind. It's not a very safe scenario for the gaze, right? Musa, as a Muslim male, not a prophet yet, he understands he doesn't want to be in that position. So he says to the lady, he doesn't even tell her, tell me, even though it is halal to talk. He just spoke with her now. But to minimize, he says, I'll walk, and if the direction is wrong, throw the stone in the direction I should be going, I'll walk in that direction. Subhanallah. This shows you the haya and the akhlaq of Musa alayhi salam. So he then returns and what goes to the father. Now, I don't want to go into the long details of this controversy. The claim that the father was Shu'aib alayhi salam, you find it in some books, but it is completely wrong. I'm sorry, but it is wrong. Chronologically, it doesn't make any sense. There is no Shu'aib at the time of Musa alayhi salam. I know this is what you have heard. I know it's very common, but it doesn't matter if it's common. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no evidence for this. In fact, it goes against everything we know. Shu'aib is a different era, different time, different place. Shu'aib has nothing to do with Musa alayhi salam. This is not Shu'aib. It was just another man in the town of Madian, in the valley of Madian. So فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ, then he goes to the father, وَقَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص. He tells him the whole story. Surah Al-Qasas, قَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص. This is why it's called Surah Qasas. قَصَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَصَص. He told him the story, right? What story? Of his upbringing, how Allah saved him, how his mother was where he learned his akhlaq from. He was in the palace of Fir'aun. Fir'aun's trying to kill him. That's why he's here with no money, no job, no career, no wife, nothing. So then, all of a sudden, light bells are going off in everybody else's head, right? We need this guy. So, قالت إحداهما, the lady that was going to become his wife. All of this, إحداهما, the Quran is referencing the same lady. The one of the two of them, the one that's going to become his wife. She's the one that's walking back. She's the one that suggests. Again, fathers, understand certain feelings are halal. You don't have to criminalize if they're existing in the heart. It's not anything negative. This is the real world. In the time of Musa, we see this. You don't think it's going to happen now? The point is not the feelings, they're halal. The point is what we do with those feelings. So the young lady says, Ya abat istajirhu. Oh my father, why don't you hire this young man? Why don't you make him somebody that's permanent, in our lives? The father understands what is going on. And so the father says, I have an offer for you. He understands it's his daughter in the end of the day. When the daughter is speaking up and saying, I want this young man, to be hired by you. It's understood what's going on. And so the father says, I have an offer for you. I have an offer for you. I shall marry you one of my two daughters. Again, the same one. I shall marry you one of my two daughters if you work for me 10 hijaj, yani 10, units of time. Some say it's a year, some say it's 10 months, whatever it might be, right? So, thamaniya hijaj, 8. And if you do 10, that is even better for you. And this shows us, subhanAllah, the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jal, how one small act of feeding goats literally changed the entire life of Musa alayhi salam. He didn't have a job, a career, a wife, a roof over his head. He got everything. Everything. So I joke, oh young men, go feed some goats water inshallah, and then make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, okay? Or you can feed people water as well. Point is, help people out, right? So she said, hire him. Now notice, what words did she use? She said, Inna khayra man istajarta al-qawiyyu al-amin. The best person you can hire is the one who's strong and qualified and the one who's trustworthy. Again, I go back to this point. How did she know Musa is qawi and Musa is amin? In that 5 minutes of interaction and in the walk back to the house, Musa has shown how trustworthy he is. He's not staring at her. He's acting like a gentleman throughout the entire time. If you can act like a gentleman with a lady, you are far more trustworthy with money and with property. If you can be trustworthy with a young lady, you can be trustworthy with anything else. And she knows this. And as for qawi, he must have shown his strength when he's feeding the cattle, when he's giving the water to the goats and whatnot. She sees this is a strong and trustworthy man, and she says, this is the best person you can hire. And the story goes on. Khulasa, the summary of it is very simple, brothers and sisters. There's a lot of talk these days about masculinity and about being a gentleman. SubhanAllah, look at the story of Musa alayhi salam. Look at how he interacted with a young lady. Look at how he showed the akhlaq of the Muslim. Throughout the story, from the beginning to the end, we notice a dignified interaction.